Today we're going to be learning Ketubot Daf Gimel. We're going to, this is the daf for Shabbat. So the Shabbat daf always goes up on Friday mornings. So here's your daf. Today's daf is sponsored by Emma Rimberg in loving memory of her father, Dr. Eric Glick, Yitzchak Nisan Ben Yaakov. He died on the 10th of Tammuz 32 years ago, age 62. With his warm smile, beautiful voice, and healing hand, I think of him daily and am comforted that he watches over us. Okay, we're going to start at the bottom of Bet Amud Bet. What we saw yesterday, we got a little bit off topic, and we said that according to, if we plan a wedding for a certain date, and then the Chatan delays the wedding for some reason, he's already responsible to start feeding the woman, and if he's a Kohen, she can eat truma. Even if, and then we said, but if he's anus, if he couldn't get there for some crazy reason that was beyond his control, then he's not. But Rava had said, ulinyan gitin eno ken. And the Gemara had said, it must be that Rava holds ein onis begiti. When it comes to get, you can't claim, oh, by accident I didn't come. If you made some sort of condition, stipulation in your get, you can't do that. It doesn't work. To which the Gemara tried to bring a proof, and they brought a number of proofs. We're going to see all those, the undoing of those proofs, the opposite approach to that, the mirror sugya to it in the continuation today when we see the opposite version of Rava. Some people said that Rava held the opposite, that the same holds true for Gitin, that you can claim onus in Gitin. But right now we're in the claim that you can't hold onus in Gitin. So which the Gemara at 3 lines from the bottom says, it seems that Rava must have been giving his own logical reason. It's not that he was basing himself on previous sources. It was that he thought logically this is what made sense. So why is that? Mishum tznuot u'mishum prutzot, because of women that are particularly humble or tsanua, as we would say, right, modest, and women who are prutzot, who sleep around. So we're not so careful about those things. So let's see. Mishum tznuot, those who are tznuot and more humble, as opposed to those who are, let's say, more arrogant, de'ihamar loli have a get. If you say, if, let's say, the person says, I'm coming in a year, if I don't come in a year, this will be your get, and then he doesn't show up. So theoretically, it's a get. But she might say, maybe he was anus, maybe he really meant to come, and saver de anis, she'll think maybe he couldn't get there by accident, and she'll just sit there feeling like she's married. She won't believe that the get is really a good get, and she'll make herself into an aguna. And it's hard to imagine a woman would do that to herself, but you can imagine she'll say, oh, I know my husband, he really meant to come. Umishum prutzot, what's that? If you say it's not a get, right? Then, well, in other words, again, he says, this will be your get if I don't come for another 30 days. And then what happens? So, Dizimin de Anis, he didn't show up because he was anus, he couldn't make it there. But, and then if we say onis begitin, that won't be a get, right? And amra lo anus, she'll say, oh no, he wasn't anus. And aslo mitzvah, she'll go get married. Turns out the get was really not a get because he wasn't planning to give the get. And he was trying to get there and he couldn't. And her sons will be mamzeri. So people who are kind of really don't care, right? They'll say, oh, there's no way he was honest, and they'll just move on, and that will be a problem. Right? Prutzot here doesn't really mean women who sleep around. It just means women who aren't overly cautious about things. It's really a bit of a different use of the word. So now the Gemara says, wait a minute. If you hold that ein onis begitin, which means, right, we don't accept ta'anat onis. So he really didn't want to give the get. Now, if a man doesn't really want to give the get, it's not a get. But what happened? He didn't show up, and he made a condition. It said, if I don't show up, it will be your get. So he didn't actually show up, but he was really honest, right? It wasn't his fault. So comes Rava and he says, we're going to assume you just didn't show up. We don't care that you were honest. It's not a good claim, which means your get's going to be a good get. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If the get's not really a good get, then she's really a married woman, and you're allowing her to marry someone just because of these snuot and these prutzot, snuot that will make agunot and the prutzot that will make mamzer. That seems crazy. Right? On a Torah level, like how do the rabbis have the power? This goes back to the sugya we saw in Yavama. How do the rabbis have the power to override the Torah law? To which the Gemara says, there's really no problem with that. Called a Mekadesh, very big line. Everyone who gets married, Adata de Rabbanit Mekadesh. They get married, as we say, Kedat Moshe Yisrael, according to the laws of Moshe and Jewish people, meaning also in rabbinic law, which means that when you get married, it's dependent on rabbinic law, which means that if you're not keeping within the law, or if there's a reason to make some sort of takana, the rabbis can uproot your kiddushin basically, and they can say this isn't a valid kiddushin. So it's not that the get is really valid. It's not a valid get, but we can say there was never really a marriage in this case. The rabbis have the power to do this. Now, how the rabbis have the power to do this is a really good question, right? And why the rabbis have the power, and how much power do the rabbis have to actually use this principle of uprooting kiddushin? Some people say nowadays, let's use that to get rid of get problems, right? A woman whose husband won't give her a get. Let's just have the rabbis uproot the kiddushin. The problem is that this is only mentioned in very few cases in the Gemara. And as usual with the Gemara, when something is mentioned by particular cases, we try to create a general rule from those cases. What is unique about those cases that we can then apply it to other cases? So first of all, in a bunch of the cases, there's actually a get in hand. So here there was a get, and that's why we can rely on it. When there's no get at all, it's much more difficult to say that we would allow it. Also, sometimes there's wrongdoing on the part of one of the players. So generally the husband, if there's wrongdoing, then we could say, oh, you're going against, you're basically breaking a contract. And then, like, for example, in Gitin, it's that he went against takana Rabban Gamliel and canceled the get in a way that you're not really supposed to do by rabbinic law. So when he does something wrong, we can penalize. Okay, so here it's not exactly that, but here it is that there was a get in hand. So there's a bit of a, also the one in Gittin had a get in hand because he gave her a get and then he sent the get to her. She never received it and then he canceled it in a way that was against the law. But it shows he didn't want to give the get, but he also there was an actual get in hand and he was going against what the rabbi said. So again, the rabbis have the power. To which the Gemara asks, is they ask every time they mention this, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi, Tinaf Kaddish b'kaspa. If the man betrothed the woman with money, we could see how he could easily undo the kiddushin. Why? Because rabbis have the power to move money from one hand to the other. They could say the money was a gift. It wasn't for marriage. But Kaddish b'bia ma'ikal amemar. What if he consummated the marriage? He betrothed her, not consummated the marriage, sorry. He betrothed her through intercourse. Then what are they going to do with that? They don't have the power to undo the act of intercourse. But what do they say? Shavi Rabbanit lebilato bilatznut. Rabbis just say what he did was znut. It wasn't really, it wasn't having relations for the purposes of marriage or betrothal. It was just bilatznut. Okay, and this is based on the fact that there's 3 ways you can get married: kesef, shtar, and biyah. Why they don't mention shtar? Shtar is probably similar to kesef. We can go into that, which is through a document, through money, which is what we do with a ring, and through intercourse, which already the rabbis kind of outlawed. But still, they're asking this question in any case. So they have an answer. That's all within the first reading of Rava, and we now basically explained on what basis do rabbis say ain't onus pegitin, based on the prutzot and the tznuot, and that's why the rabbis instituted it, and the rabbis do have the power. Some people say that Amar Rava gitin. It's the same for gitin as it is for erusin, which means Alma Kasav Rava yesh onus pegitin. You can claim onus in the case of gitin. To which they start now with all the cases they brought to try to prove Rava's point in the previous sugya. Now they're going to use this to undo. The question, if this will be your get if you don't come from now until a month from now, a year from now, 12 months. If I don't come, if I don't show up in 12 months, this will be your get. That's what the man says to her. And then he dies. Now, did he not? Right? We don't know if he meant to come. But he died. He couldn't come. Ain't no get. This is not a get because, right? Now, what do they say? What do they get from here? Why is it not a get if he died? Because ain't onus, right? There's no ain't get la harmita. You can't have the get apply after he's dead. So metu de ain't no get. Hachala harez a get. Well, it's only if he died that it's not a get. But if he was sick, it sounds like it would be a get because it specifically says died. It doesn't say if he got sick. So that sounds like if he got sick, he could claim he was honest, right? It would, if he was sick, it would be a get, because only if he died, it would be a get. If he was sick, he couldn't get there for honest reasons, it was beyond his control, it's still going to be a get. So, Laolam, Emelacha, Chala, Nami, Eno get. Really, why did it say died? It said died because they wanted you to learn the Ein Get La Harmita. But it would be the same if he was sick also. It's just they specifically gave a kiss of death to teach you that there is no such thing as get after you die. To which the Gemara says, what do you mean? It already says that in the earlier on in Gittin there. Okay, this is quoted from Gittin. Where does it say it earlier on? So it gives this case of, I'm just going to read it. It says on Ayin Bet in Gittin, it says, this will be my get if I die. If I die from this disease, this will be your get. Okay, that already says, and then it says it's no get, it's no good. That teaches you ain't get lachar mita. So they say, and then you don't need it here, right? So they say no. The ain't get lachar mita. Okay, right? So okay, so again, ain't get lachar mita tane leresha. It already says it earlier on. So you say, no. Maybe it says it here specifically, if I don't come within 12 months and I die, and he dies, that case is a little bit different. To say this will be your get if I die is different than saying this is your get now if I don't show up in another 12 months. Because then if they die, it's not the same. Okay, there's a machloket with between two different opinions there, and the rabbis hold by one of them about whether that actually is considered get after death or not. That's why they specifically gave that case, to say we disagree with the rabbis, and this is also get la'achar mita, even though other people thought that this wasn't a case of get la'achar mita. So in which case, it could be mita, and it could be if they're sick. And then it shows, yesh ones begitin. Neither way is it going to be a get, because he was really trying to get there and couldn't. Tashma, next verse. This will be your get now. If I don't come from now for another 12 months, and he died within that, get. So now they say, my love, huadin lechala. Can you hear? Okay, what's the difference, right? Again, the first case was if I don't come, right? If I don't come, right? And then this is actually the same kind of case, but now they say, in this case, right, if you say me'achshav, this will be your get right now. Before you said this is your get if I don't come. Now you say this is your get right now. And if I don't come, right, then the get later will be retroactively for here. So if he dies within their harese get, it actually works because the get really applied before he died. So my lav huadin lechala. Now here they assume it would be the same if he got sick. Because why? Because again, you're basically saying if I don't show up for any reason, right, your get is relevant now. So it should include even if they got sick, to which case it says it is a get. And the fact that you were sick and couldn't get there is irrelevant. Okay, just 1 second. Right. So what we're assuming here, again, the difference is that he said the words me'achshav, which means that he really wanted this get to apply and was just kind of leaving open a small chance that, you know, if I show up, then it means that I don't want the get to happen. But really, he was saying this really is your get from now. And that's what we're going to assume it applies no matter what. But then they're going to, and then it seems like ein onus, right? That ein onus begitin. There is no claim of onus because if you didn't come because you were sick, it actually is a get. So now they say no. Me dafka to lo nichale de tipo kame yabam. What he's really saying is, why did he give a get in this way? Because he was going away, he wasn't sure what was going to happen, and he didn't want his wife to fall to Yibum, to the brother. So he basically says, here's your ticket out, okay? If something happens to me, then this is your ticket out. And he was just trying to give her a way out if he doesn't show up. But onus doesn't factor in here. In other words, if he was sick and didn't come, if he was, right? He basically is, if it's, sorry, I didn't say that clearly. What he really wants to say is, what he's really saying is this is your get in the event that I die later. And he said it in a way that it would actually work. Okay, because again, ain't get lachar mita, but if he says it in this way, it would work. And therefore, that he specifically was trying to say, if I die and I don't show up because I'm dead, this will be your get. But he wasn't trying to say if I don't show up because I'm sick. And therefore, it doesn't apply just as easily to chala, to sick. And therefore, you learn you would be able to claim onus begitin if you were just sick. Tashma. Let's learn from this source. He said to people, this will be my get if I don't come now for within 30 days. He got there after 30 days, but there was a waterway in between. He couldn't get there. And he's screaming on the other side, look, I'm coming. Trying to get there, but he's not. Shmuel says, it's not as if he got to the city. That get is a get, okay? He was trying to cancel the get, but it doesn't work because he didn't actually show up. So here you see, we don't accept a claim of onus, okay? So against Rava, to which they say, no, this is a different kind of onus. Onus de shachiach shani. This is a very common onus. He should have known that there was water on the way to the city, and he should have known that some delays might happen and there might not be a ferryman to take him to the other side. And he should have anticipated that this is when I leave my house to get to an appointment and I leave the exact moment I'm supposed to leave. But I know that there might be traffic on the way and it might take me 5 extra minutes, or I might get stuck behind a garbage truck, or something might happen. Happens to me all the time. And, and then I say, I'm sorry, I'm late. There was traffic, but it's not really traffic's fault. It's really my fault because I know that to anticipate this traffic. So we knew to anticipate that this might happen. And he should have said when he made the condition, if I don't come from now for another 30 days, should have stipulated it inside saying, or around 30 days, or, unless I get stuck by the bridge or something like that. And since he didn't stipulate that, well, then it's his responsibility. So what they're basically saying is this isn't exactly onus. You could see how this is very different than if someone was sick. It's a different kind of onus. Okay, now we're back to our case of Ketubot. And when do women get married? Right, on Wednesdays. So now, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak lo shanu ela mitakanat Ezra ve'ela she'en batei dinim kfuin ela b'sheni v'chamishi. Ezra instituted the batei din meet on Monday and Thursdays. There's all sorts of things connected with that. Why we read Torah on those days. Why the Megillah is read on those days. If you don't live in a big city, right? The whole beginning of Masechet Megillah was based on that. But that all happened from Ezra. Before that, before takanat Ezra, they had courts open every day. Now, whether they met every day or not is one thing. Maybe they didn't, but they were at least potentially, you could go to a court any day. They met when there was an issue. You would go to someone and you would say, oh, I need a judgment. They get together some judges and they judge you. So in that case, this whole thing is irrelevant because this is all based on the court. When the court meets, and because of ta'ana patulim, with him claiming that she wasn't a virgin. So they say the following. Takanat Ezra, what's the relevance if it's before Takanat Ezra, this wasn't a thing? Okay, that's like what happened. We're not here to learn history. So they say, right, you might be, but the Gemara is not. That's not the Gemara's point. So hachikana, this is what they meant to say. If you happen to be in a place where the courts meet on a daily basis, or could potentially meet on a daily basis, then we already don't really have to get married on Wednesday. So now they say, but wait a minute, habi'inan shakdu, but don't you need shakdu? Okay, which we're going to see what this is, which is, we'll see it in detail in another second. What it is that the Chatan's family made the food. They need to spend time making the food. They need some days. They don't want Shabbat in between. Remember, they didn't really have good refrigeration. So they basically said, we're going to give you time to basically prepare your meal. So that may be relevant even if it's right. This has nothing to do with the courts and what kind of court system you have. So the answer to Torah would mean in a case where you don't have to worry about that because they already made all the food and the food's, let's say, already by Monday, then you get married on Monday or Tuesday. You don't have to wait for Wednesday. Now the Gemara wants to know, my shakdu, turning out I'm a bet. So what is this shakdu? To that, and they're going to bring a braita. And from that braita, we're going to have, it's a long braita. We're going to have some other questions about some other things in this braita. Ditanya, and that will basically take us till the end of the daf. Why did they get married on the 4th day of the week? Okay, so they would get early to the court and she would get married on Sunday. Sorry, I just read that wrong. Sorry, let me read that again. Okay, the whole idea is they get up early to go to the right. They would be able to go the next day to the court on Thursday. Why don't you do it on Sunday then? Because the courts met on Monday as well. Right? They would wake up the next morning on Monday. To which they say, שקדו חכמים על תקנת בנו ישראל, שאדם טורח סעודה 3 ימים. They basically created this takana to help the beno Israel so that the feast would be nice and invested in by the husband's family, and they gave them Echad b'Shabbat, Sheni b'Shabbat, Shlishi b'Shabbat. U'Revi'i konsa, they gave them 3 days to get ready, and then on the 4th day they would marry them. And we takana ve'ela. Wait, now we start to hear that, wait, things changed. Because there was a danger, we're going to have to figure out what that danger was. We don't yet know. They ended up doing it more on Tuesday. And the rabbis didn't stop them. But don't do it on Monday. But if it's because of ones, coercion, then even Monday you're allowed. So now we have to figure out what is takana and what is ones. But there's one more line of this braita before we finish. They wouldn't let them do, they told them don't have relations on Friday night for the first time. For the first time, because he tears her hymen and there's blood, and you're not allowed to basically cause bleeding on Shabbat. So therefore, avoid doing that on Shabbat. Back to understanding this braita. So that was all to understand what shakdu is. Now we got that. So now there's two issues. Number one, to get to the court, and number two, to have time to do the meal. And that's why it was specifically Wednesday. So now they say, what's this sakana? If it's that the government in charge at the time said any women who get married on Wednesday are going to be killed. Well, nahagu, and then it wouldn't be nahagu to do it on Yom Shlishi, la'akre legamre, na'akre, right? They would legamre na'akre. They should totally uproot this institution of the rabbis of Wednesday. It's not that important in the face of life and death. So Amar Rabba de Amre. So second option is the Amre betulani say the Yom Revi'i tiba'el hegemon tchila. What they said is that all the women who get married on Wednesday, because they knew everyone got married on Wednesday, has to sleep with the head of the city, the governor, first. Before, okay, they wanted to sleep with the women on the day of their wedding. It was like a cruel gzera. To which they say, "Hi sakana, onesu." That's not sakana. That's not danger. That's what we call coercion. They were forced, right? They were raped. So they say, well, mishum de'ikat snuot demascha nafshayo lekatla va'atel lidei sakana. Because they were tsnuot, we're going to get back again to the tsnuot and prutzot that we started with. They were the tsnuot who basically said, you know what? If I sleep with him, I won't be allowed to my husband. Remember, if you have relations with someone, if you purpose intentionally, you're forbidden to your husband and you're forbidden to the person you just have relations with. So they were worried, even though it was coerced, they felt like, well, maybe I'll be forbidden to my husband. And therefore, they basically said, I'm not doing this. I'm going to give my life because I don't want to be forbidden to my husband. Okay, now, a whole bunch of questions are raised here. Okay, Tosfot, for example, raises some, which are, doesn't it say in Sanhedrin, Yareg, Val, Yavor, Gilor, is one of them, aren't you supposed to give up your life for this kind of thing? So remember, a woman who's betrothed already is forbidden to anybody. So Tosfot gives two answers. One is based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin, where it says, Esther Karka Olam Haita. Women are passive in relations, and therefore the Yareg, Val, Yavor, by Gilor, Arayot is not by women who men are having relations with because they're considered passive. It's a little bit of a difficult answer. It's not necessarily a perfect answer. Tosfot also quotes Rabbeinu Hananel as saying that relations with a Gentile is not considered Giloy Arayot, that you have to be Moser Nefesh for. And by the way, even if it's not Giloy Arayot, it's maybe Gzerat Hashmad. It's a time of when the enemy is just trying to do things to get at the Jewish people. And then, by the way, even a small mitzvah you're supposed to get yourself killed for. But they try to say maybe this isn't that, okay? And maybe you don't have to. In any case, what we now say is it's an onus that turned into sakana because these women were basically unwilling to sleep with them, and basically they were putting their lives on the line for it. So then they say, if they were mistaken in their thinking because they thought that they'd be forbidden to their husbands, the literature is shari. Why don't the rabbis just teach everybody that they can go back to their husbands after, and then, okay, so they'll get raped by these men and it'll be okay. Okay, well, hold on for a minute, right? Nobody's really going into the perspective of the woman of, oh, just get raped on the night before the day of your wedding and, don't worry about it. So, again, they're saying don't get killed for it, okay? But on the other hand, it's still hard to understand that the women would want to be going ahead with this and would be willing to, obviously, they didn't want this, right? They didn't bring it upon themselves. But should they surrender to it or not surrender to it? Is it worth risking their lives for? So they basically say it's not worth risking your life for, right? But in any case, it's still very difficult to imagine a woman would want to do that. You can imagine many women who might just say, I'd rather die than do that. In any case, the Gemara answers, well, it won't help to teach them that it's mutar because it's actually not permitted to all women. Ika prutzot, there's some women who would do it willingly and would be interested in having relations with this governor of the city and would enjoy it. And therefore, for them, it would be forbidden to go back to their husbands. And economic kohenot. And if you're married to a Kohen or you were betrothed to a Kohen and you're about to marry him, you actually will not be permitted to. So teaching about this won't actually help everybody. To which they say, okay, well, if really it is this issue of sakana for these women, and it's not going to help to start teaching it because there are exceptions to the rule, and then exceptions to the rule will think it's okay and it's not. So, li'akre, well, if it's really going to lead to sakana, to danger, you should get rid of it entirely. Well, again, why does it say nahagu? So they say, Gzera avida de batla, utakanta de rabbanim makam gzera lo aklina. This is a very important line. What it's saying is, you're in this right now, and you think this is going to be like this forever, but it's not. And we're not going to uproot a takana of the rabbis because of something that's happening on a temporary basis right now. This will go away, and then we'll want to go back to the original decree. So nahagu am to do differently, but they didn't want to uproot it entirely because they said, we're in here for the long term. One day this will stop, and we'll go back to the way it was before. So then the Gemara says, well, if the whole thing is that the hegemon is going to come on Wednesdays because he knows everyone's getting married, as soon as people start moving their weddings to Tuesdays, he might start coming on Tuesdays as well. So they say, answer, no, don't worry about that, because it's only a doubt. He doesn't know for sure you're going to get married. He might not catch wind of what's going on. He might know, weddings are always on Wednesdays now. Sometimes he sees are on Tuesdays. He's not going to really get that the whole thing switched and that you changed everything. And he's not going to bother himself to come into the city from wherever he's living to go try to find women when he's not sure if women are even going to be getting married or not. So, he's not that vindictive to ruin these people's lives. He'll do it when it's easy and convenient and when he knows for sure he'll have prey to prey upon, but not if it's a suffix, which is a little difficult because if they really did all switch to Tuesday, it would be clear after a certain period of time that it was all on Tuesday, but such the Gemara says. Ubisheni, you have to remember also, they don't really know why this is, right? What this takana is. They're coming up with a theory. The question is, does the theory hold water? Is it convincing enough? So you could sort of answer it, even if it's not the greatest answer. To which they ask, okay, what about this next one? Ubisheni lo yichnos v'machmata ones mutal, right? And sheni you can't, but if it's honest, then you can. So what's honest? My honest. Ilay mahadamaram. We just talked about honest. But then, hatam kare le sakana, hacha kare le honest. There they called it sakana, danger. Here they call it honest. It can't be the same thing. Vichu, and furthermore, hatam nahagu, hacha mutal. There it said nahagu ha'am. They were customary to do it. But here it says it's permitted. So they used a whole different language. So, amarava de amre sar tzava ba'le'il. It's a case, what's honest? When a fleet, the head of the army is coming to the city with a fleet of soldiers, and usually what they do, they confiscated the food. We're not worried about rape, we're worried about food. They're going to take all the food away from the wedding feast, so we allow you even on Monday to do it. So hechidami, what's the case? If they're coming into the city temporarily, so just push it off a week till next Wednesday. No, it's a case where he was coming, it's a case where he was coming permanently. So then you have to push it up earlier. So what about b'shlishi? Why don't you just marry her then? We're assuming he's coming on Wednesday. So they say, Asfavara Dide, his entourage, is coming b'shlishi katu. They come a day earlier to set things up. And that's why already by then they're going to start taking the food away. And that's why you could do it a day earlier, right? 2 days earlier on Monday. Second option is something totally different. As it says in a braita, all the food was ready for the wedding. And then all of a sudden, the father of the bride, of the groom, or the mother of the bride, it really could be either or, dies. What do we do? Right? Terrible situation. Try to imagine yourself in that situation. What would you do? Okay, you might find the halacha surprising, but again, you have to remember what a huge loss it was for people. Nowadays, it would also be a huge loss, right? If you're poor, it's a huge loss because you barely could afford the wedding and now you have to throw everything out. If you're rich, then you're probably spending a lot of money on your wedding and it's a huge loss also. So, right now, obviously, if you're in between, same thing. In any case, what does it say here? You put the dead body in a room to the side, off to the side where no one will bother it. And they'll have someone, in other words, away from the ceremony. They have someone else take care of shmirah, watching the body. And they usher them right into the chuppah right away. That's honest, that you could even do it on a Monday if this were to happen to you. And then we'll see what the continuation is. They even bo'el bilat mitzvah, even can have relations then. This is because onen is not as serious as avilut. Once avilut kicks in after the funeral, there's nothing you can do about it. But if you do it before, then we can salvage the situation. And that's the onus mentioned in this braita. With that, we'll finish today's daf. Have a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Tov, everybody.